My name is Madeline, I'm 32 years old, and on the night of my birthday party, I watched my life fall apart. I caught my husband kissing my sister, right in the middle of the celebration, in my own house. In that moment, I thought I would never recover, that it would just be another wound to carry. But what I didn't know was that sometimes losing everything is the first step to finally finding yourself. Maddie never knew what it was like to be the cherished daughter. From a young age, she understood that, in that house, there were two well-defined roles. Olivia was the sun, and she was the shadow. The perfect daughter and the difficult one. The lovable and the ungrateful. The special and the forgotten. Her first realization of this came early, before she even understood what favoritism meant. At 5 years old, she remembered being excited to show a drawing she had made at school. She had spent a long time coloring it, trying to perfect the details because she wanted to impress her parents. But when she handed the paper to her mother, the reaction was a quick glance and an emotionless response. "Oh, that's nice. Now go wash your hands for dinner." It wasn't a traumatic moment, but it stuck in her memory because, a few days later, Olivia drew something much simpler, a colorful scribble with no shape at all. Their parents, however, looked at it as if they were staring at a masterpiece. Her father picked up the paper and smiled, pinning it to the fridge with a magnet. "Wow, Olivia. You're so talented." Maddie, at the time, just watched. She didn't quite understand what she felt, but something inside her hurt. As the years went by, these situations kept repeating. If she helped set the dinner table, she would hear a cold "thank you." If Olivia picked up a single glass to take to the sink, their parents would smile and comment on how helpful she was. If Maddie worked hard at school and brought home high grades, her parents barely reacted. But if Olivia, even with average grades, showed the slightest achievement, she would receive praise as if she had accomplished something great. "You need to learn to be sweeter, Maddie," her mother would say whenever she questioned the unfairness. "Look at how charming Olivia is. If you keep that attitude, you'll never get anywhere in life," her father would repeat. The comparisons were constant. Small phrases, small looks, small rejections, but they built up over the years, shaping Maddie in ways she would only understand much later. By the time she reached her teenage years, she had stopped trying. Growing up in that house meant hearing, every single day, that she needed to be different. That she wasn't enough. That she wasn't as pretty, as charismatic, or as pleasant as her sister. Little by little, she learned that hoping for love from her parents was like waiting for rain in the desert. So she simply gave up. Her days became filled with a quiet routine. She studied, helped around the house, but avoided interacting as much as possible. She knew that anything she said or did could be used against her. If she complained, she would be called ungrateful. If she showed any irritation, she would be labeled difficult. If she tried to start a conversation, she would be ignored. And Olivia? Olivia remained Olivia. With her easy smile and charming ways, she shone effortlessly. She never had to ask for anything, their parents anticipated her needs before she even voiced them. But the worst part wasn't the gifts her sister received or the kind words she was showered with. The worst part was the way their parents looked at her. A look filled with pride, admiration, affection. Something Maddie had never felt on her own skin. When she looked at her mother, she saw only impatience. When she looked at her father, she saw coldness. She never knew what it was like to be loved by them. And that's how it was until she turned 18. By then, she already knew she wouldn't stay there a moment longer than necessary. While Olivia made plans for the college their parents would pay for, Maddie understood that no such support would exist for her. If she wanted something, she would have to earn it on her own. She worked at a diner during her last year of high school and saved every penny. She had a simple plan: leave home as soon as possible. And then, finally, the day came. She remembered it perfectly, standing in the middle of the living room, holding the worn-out suitcase she had bought at a thrift shop. Her heart was racing, but she showed no emotion. Olivia was on the couch, distracted by her phone, paying no attention at all. Her mother crossed her arms and sighed. "You're overreacting, Maddie. This is just a phase. Do whatever you want," her father said, indifferent. "Just don't come back crying later." They didn't try to stop her. They didn't ask if she needed anything, didn't even pretend to be concerned. They simply watched as she walked to the door, as if she were just one less burden in the house. When she stepped outside, she felt a mix of fear and relief. She didn't know exactly what the future held, but she was certain of one thing: she no longer belonged there. The beginning wasn't easy. With no money, no support, and no experience, Maddie had to make do. In the first few months, she slept on a coworker's couch, took any job she could find, and spent countless nights awake studying. But every small achievement was a reminder that her life was now in her own hands. Without her parents to dictate what was right or wrong, she found strength within herself that she never knew existed. She learned to adapt, to trust her own judgment, to make decisions without needing anyone's approval. The years passed, and with great effort, she earned a degree in business administration. She built her career on her own, without shortcuts. She learned that she didn't need to be the perfect daughter to have worth. Now, at 31, married to Ethan and owning her own house, Maddie felt like she had finally won. But a part of her, deep down, still carried scars that had never fully healed. And maybe that's why, when planning her 32nd birthday party, she decided to invite her family. A silent attempt to prove that, despite everything, she had made it. With her new home and the life she had built on her own, she decided to make it special. For the first time, she would have a party for herself, just the way she had always wanted. She threw herself into the preparations with enthusiasm. She wanted something elegant yet welcoming. She hired a catering service, picked out a sophisticated decoration, and made sure to invite her closest friends. But deep down, she knew something was missing. That's why, even with a growing unease in her chest, she invited her family. She sent the invitations out of sheer formality, without expecting much. She didn't think her parents or Olivia really cared about her life, but a part of her still held on to that silent hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different now. When the day arrived, everything was perfect. The house was beautifully decorated, filled with guests chatting and laughing. The clinking of champagne glasses echoed through the room, and for a moment, Maddie allowed herself to believe that this night would be unforgettable, for the right reasons. The parents arrived together, with Olivia right behind them. Even after all this time, her sister was still the same. She dressed with an almost rehearsed elegance, her makeup flawless, her smile always ready to charm. "Wow, Maddie," Olivia commented, glancing around. "I never imagined you knew how to throw parties." Maddie ignored the slightly condescending tone and just gave a small smirk. People change. Ethan appeared right after, wrapping an arm around her and pressing a kiss to her temple. "Everything is perfect," he whispered. She allowed herself to relax a little. She had worked hard to build this life, this moment. For the first time, she felt like she belonged to something that was truly hers. The party was lively. Friends congratulated her, toasts were made, and Maddie felt lighter than she had in years. At some point, she noticed the champagne tray was empty and went to the kitchen to get more. That was when everything fell apart. As she stepped into the hallway leading to the kitchen, her steps halted. There, leaning against the wall, partially hidden by the dim lighting, were Olivia and Ethan. Her sister smiled mischievously while his hands gripped her waist. The shock was immediate, but what made the ground disappear beneath her feet was seeing Ethan's mouth meet Olivia's. For a moment, everything around her went silent. Maddie couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then, the numbness shattered, and rage took over. "What the hell are you doing?" Her voice came out firm, cutting through the air, loud enough to draw the attention of those nearby. Olivia took a step back, adjusting her dress without haste, as if she had merely been caught in some harmless joke. Ethan froze. "Maddie," he murmured, guilt written all over his face. But Olivia just rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Maddie, it was just a kiss. No need to make a scene." Those words broke something inside her. Just a kiss? Her voice trembled, but not from weakness. It was pure rage. "Are you telling me that kissing my husband, in my house, at my party, is insignificant?" "Oh, please," Olivia scoffed. "You always blow everything out of proportion." The disdain in her sister's voice made Maddie's blood boil. "And you?" She turned to Ethan. "What do you have to say?" He ran a hand over his face, avoiding her gaze. I don't know what happened." "It was nothing, Maddie." "Nothing?" She stepped forward. "So if I do the same, it'll also be nothing?" He stayed silent. By then, the murmurs at the party had spread, and soon their parents arrived to see what was going on. But instead of looking shocked or reprimanding Olivia, their mother sighed in irritation. "Maddie, stop with the drama. Olivia is young, it's natural for men to prefer her." Her heart pounded. "What? You've always been bitter, Maddie. Just look at how you're reacting. That's why no one ever takes your side." Her father simply shook his head. "If you were sweeter, maybe Ethan wouldn't have looked elsewhere." Her breath became heavy. For a second, everything felt surreal. Were they really saying this? Were they really defending Olivia? A wave of indignation surged through her, and in that moment, something inside Maddie changed. "Get out of my house." Silence fell. "What?" Olivia frowned, incredulous. "All of you," her voice was firm, unwavering. "Now." The guests exchanged uneasy glances. "Maddie, don't be childish," her mother insisted. "Out." No one moved, so she took a step toward the door, yanking it open with a firm pull. "I said, out. All of you." One by one, the guests began to leave, some embarrassed, others curious to see how it would end. Her parents grumbled in outrage, but had no choice. Olivia crossed her arms, rolling her eyes, but left without arguing. Ethan, however, remained frozen in place. "Maddie. You too." He blinked, confused. "What?" "Maddie, wait. It's over, Ethan. You're not spending another night in this house. It was just a mistake, I said get out." He stood still for a moment, seeming like he wanted to argue. But when he saw the look on her face, he gave up. He grabbed his keys and walked out without looking back. When the door closed, an eerie silence settled over the empty house. Maddie took a deep breath, feeling her chest rise and fall rapidly. Then, a gentle touch on her shoulder made her turn. It was Eleanor, her maternal grandmother. Her eyes were kind as she pulled Maddie into a hug. "Good people always suffer, my dear," she whispered. "But that doesn't mean they lose in the end." And for the first time that night, Maddie let the tears fall. The first few days after the party were quiet. Maddie had never liked crowds or commotion, but the absence of Ethan and the sudden emptiness of the house were hard to ignore. The space that once felt warm now seemed too big, too cold. It was strange coming home from work with no one to talk to about her day. Strange sleeping alone after years of sharing a bed. Strange realizing that, for the first time in a long time, she was completely on her own. At first, the silence was unsettling. She found herself turning on the TV just to hear some noise. Playing music in the background while she worked. Anything to fill the void. But gradually, she began to realize that silence wasn't her enemy. She learned to enjoy her own company. Started creating new routines, rediscovering small pleasures, like reading at night with a cup of tea or taking unhurried walks. She redecorated some rooms, removing any trace of Ethan from the house. Threw away his clothes, deleted their photos, even rearranged the furniture. Each change was a silent affirmation that this place belonged only to her now. The first few weeks were a mix of relief and loneliness, but she was learning to handle it. Then, the phone rang. It was her mother. Maddie stared at the screen for a few seconds before answering. She knew that after the party, her family was furious with her. But deep down, a part of her still hoped there might be an apology. There wasn't. Your grandmother died. Those were the first words she heard. No preamble, no emotion. Just a cold, detached statement thrown into the air like any other piece of information. For a moment, Maddie couldn't respond. She felt a tightness in her chest that she hadn't expected. Eleanor had always been the only one who truly cared about her. The only one who looked at her with warmth, who made her feel like she had worth. And now, she was gone. What? Her voice came out low, almost a whisper. She had a stroke. She didn't make it. Her mother sighed. The funeral is in a few days. I thought you should know. Maddie closed her eyes, trying to process it. Are you already making the arrangements? Oh, we don't have time for that. Your grandmother didn't like complications, so let's keep it simple. In Mom's vocabulary, simple meant the bare minimum. And who's covering the expenses? She asked, already knowing the answer. Well, we can't afford it right now. You always wanted to act independent, so maybe you'd like to do something for your grandmother. Maddie gripped the phone tighter. Of course. They weren't calling out of consideration. They were calling because they needed someone to handle the problem. And, as always, that someone was her. In the following days, Maddie dedicated herself to organizing everything. She discovered that funerals were outrageously expensive. Funeral services, a casket, flowers, a space for the ceremony, every call she made increased the amount she'd have to pay. She didn't have that kind of money. She was still recovering from the divorce, from the recent expenses with the house. But there was no other option. She pulled out her credit card, accepted absurd installment plans, and ignored the weight of debt. Eleanor deserved a dignified farewell. With every call she made, with every payment she approved, resentment grew inside her. Her family didn't even offer to help. None of them asked if she needed anything. None of them cared to lighten her burden. But Maddie expected nothing less. On the day of the funeral, the sky was overcast, as if mourning. She arrived early, overseeing every detail, to make sure everything was right. She chose white flowers because she knew Eleanor liked them. She had a small tribute area prepared, even though she wasn't sure if anyone would have something to say. When the family arrived, it felt like watching a forced performance. Her parents wore tired expressions, as if this was just a passing inconvenience. Olivia was dressed in black, but her face showed no emotion. And then, before the ceremony even ended, they started to leave. Maddie watched, incredulous, as one by one they walked away. "We have other commitments," her mother murmured, as if trying to justify herself. Her father just nodded. Olivia, on the other hand, let out a discreet yawn. "This is taking too long, isn't it?" Maddie felt indignation rising inside her. "She was your grandmother. You're not even going to stay until the end?" "Oh, Maddie, please." Olivia rolled her eyes. "What else is there to do? We already showed up." Maddie didn't respond. She just watched as they walked away without looking back. And then, suddenly, she found herself alone. All the other guests had already left as well. Only she remained there, in front of the closed casket, feeling an unbearable weight on her chest. She took a deep breath and knelt before the freshly covered grave, running her hand over the still soft earth. "I wish you were here, Grandma," she whispered. She closed her eyes, allowing herself, for the first time since receiving the news, to truly cry. A week had passed since Eleanor's funeral, and Maddie still felt the weight of that lonely farewell. The silence in the house, which had once started to feel comfortable, now carried a different kind of melancholy. Her grandmother had been the only person in her family who truly cared about her. Knowing she would never hear her voice or feel her embrace again was an open wound that time would take a long time to heal. That morning, her phone rang. The unknown number made her hesitate before answering. "Maddie Turner?" "Yes, this is she. This is Richard Holloway, your grandmother Eleanor Turner's attorney. I'm calling to inform you about the reading of the will. We need you to come to our office tomorrow at 10 in the morning." Maddie frowned. "Will?" "Yes. Your grandmother left clear instructions on how she wanted her assets to be distributed. All direct family members have been summoned." She took a deep breath. She expected nothing from that meeting. Eleanor had never talked about money, and Maddie had no illusions. If there was any inheritance, it would probably be divided among everyone, and considering her family's history, her parents and Olivia would likely take the largest share. But it didn't matter. It wasn't her grandmother's money she wanted. What she truly wanted was more time with her. The next day, Maddie arrived at the law office a few minutes before the scheduled time. The atmosphere was serious and impersonal, with dark wood furniture and shelves filled with legal books. Upon entering the designated room, she found her parents and Olivia already seated, visibly bored. Her mother was looking at her nails, while her father checked his watch every few seconds. Olivia, as always, seemed indifferent to any sense of solemnity, scrolling through her phone. When Maddie sat down, no one said a word. No greetings, no friendly looks. It was as if she were a stranger among them. The attorney cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Thank you for coming. As you all know, Eleanor Turner recently passed away, and as per her wishes, we are here to proceed with the reading of her will." He opened an envelope and took out a few papers, adjusting his glasses before beginning to read. "I, Eleanor Turner, in full possession of my mental faculties, hereby record my final wishes and the distribution of my assets." The attorney paused briefly before continuing. "Throughout my life, I have watched with sadness as my family drifted away from the values that truly matter. I have seen how greed and selfishness took hold of people who should have been a home to one another. But in the midst of this darkness, there has always been a light. Maddie, my dear granddaughter, you were the only one who truly loved me. The only one who stood by my side not out of interest, but out of genuine love. You were my joy in my final years, and for that, I leave everything I own to you." The silence that followed was overwhelming. Maddie blinked a few times, trying to absorb what she had just heard. Her parents, previously distracted, were now fully alert. Olivia, who had spent the entire meeting glued to her phone, slammed it onto the table with a loud thud. "What?" Her mother's voice was a shocked whisper. The attorney continued, ignoring the evident disbelief. "My house, my savings, and any other assets in my name belong exclusively to Maddie Turner. I leave nothing to the rest of my family, as I have not seen in any of them the slightest consideration or genuine love throughout my life." The room erupted. "This is outrageous!" her mother exclaimed, abruptly standing up. "She wouldn't do this. That girl must have schemed something." Her father pointed an accusing finger at Maddie. Olivia, who had been silent until then, let out a mocking laugh. "Seriously?" She crossed her arms. "How convenient, Maddie. You never get tired of playing the victim, do you?" Maddie, until that moment, hadn't said a word. She was still trying to process everything. "I had nothing to do with this," she replied, keeping her voice steady. "Oh, of course you did." Her mother raged. "You manipulated Grandma. You made her change the will while we were busy with our lives." Maddie let out a dry laugh. "Busy with your lives? You didn't even care to arrange her funeral. Who do you think paid for everything?" The lawyer cleared his throat again, regaining control of the situation. "If I may, there is one more part of the will that needs to be read." The glares were still filled with fury, but everyone fell silent as he pulled out another envelope. Eleanor left a handwritten letter to be read at this moment. He carefully unfolded the sheet and began, "I know there will be outrage and indignation over my decision, but I don't care. I spent years watching you, waiting for change, hoping that one day you would realize that what truly matters in this life isn't money or status, but the connections we create. I saw my granddaughter being ignored, neglected, and pushed aside, and I always wondered when you would recognize your mistake. But that day never came." The lawyer continued. "Maddie was the only one who stood by my side without asking for anything in return. The only one who truly cared, who gave me love when I needed it most. While the rest of the family treated me as a burden, she was there, present. I could not allow everything I built to fall into the hands of people who never valued me. That's why my decision is final. Maddie, my dear, may this money serve you so that you never have to depend on anyone again." Silence once again filled the room. This time, there were no more outbursts. Only faces filled with anger and disbelief. "This is a scam," the father murmured, his voice tense. "This is justice," Maddie replied, rising from her chair. The mother crossed her arms, her face red with fury. "You may have gotten away with this, Maddie, but that doesn't mean you've won." Maddie chuckled, humorless. "You were never competition." Without another word, she grabbed her bag and walked out of the room without looking back. For the first time in her life, she no longer needed anyone's approval.